Hello, just getting ready for my talk on what's happening with spiritual ascension. So this is scheduled for 1:45, so I'm just waiting for a moment. So this topic has been at the back of my mind for a while, and somehow today is the day. So I wanted to talk about spiritual ascension because this is something that I began reading about maybe 20 years ago. And at the time, I certainly didn't understand it. And I know that people today are still talking about ascension. What is it? When is it going to happen? And what's going to happen? So I thought I'd just talk through some of my own ideas on it because at the time, I picked up bits of information from different people on websites and as you do when you're curious and you're confused, and I didn't quite understand it. But some of the things that I heard about and that I'm still hearing about Ascension is that the end times are coming. And the Mayan prophecy was a big one. 2012 was a really big one because people thought that's it. On the 21st of December 2012, everything was going to change. We were going to have this massive flash of something, and that was it. It was all over. And of course, it didn't happen. I've heard things like there's going to be 3 days of darkness. I hear about there's 144,000 people, and what does that mean? I hear about the event. I hear about a solar flash. People are saying aliens are going to come and sort things out. The Arcturians, the Pleiadians, whatever. The second coming of Christ. The indigenous people hold this knowledge and they will say, yes, the end times are coming, but they know it in a completely different sense to what we're reading about. Also that we're moving to the fifth dimension. That's another one. So I suppose the big questions are, well, what is it? And it's just my interpretation of it. When and how is this going to happen? So finally, when I join the dots, the first thing I'd say is don't take it all so literally, all the things that you're hearing, because when this was originally trying to be explained, we didn't understand it. We were given stories and symbols, and then we couldn't understand them either, because it's a spiritual concept. It's not something we're used to on this level, and a lot of people don't know about it and they don't hear it. For me, it's all about change of consciousness. And consciousness is where a higher, better version of ourselves is trying to come in, trying to reach us on this human level so that we can work with it on this level. And this change of consciousness is trying to move us upwards out of where we are today in what we call a third dimension, because things have got very stuck and there's lots of problems. So it's different this time because in the past, people were developing themselves spiritually on their own. Now the entire world is faced with this. All of us together, as a human race, as a collective consciousness, have to move on because we are so stuck. And I'll try and explain why. I was trying to think, how can I make this simple for myself, but maybe for somebody else who's trying to bridge the gap. And there's other people can explain this much better in a more complex way, or more mathematical or whatever. They're ahead of me. But this is trying to bridge the gap on a simpler form for some people. So if I can just go back a bit, and if you bear with me, if I go back just a little bit to the time of creation, right? God created the world. We're all told this. And God, what is it? Well, God is a massive consciousness, an incredible, vast consciousness of purity, of absolute perfection and knowing, of the highest, best intention of what unconditional love is. And God, we were told God created the world. Fine. Why? To know itself better. That's what I heard. So it could understand itself better. And that didn't make sense. So hang on, God knows everything, understands everything. Why would it create a world? What's the point? And then that didn't make sense to me. So in other words, what's the meaning of life? What's the point of existence? And the way I'm trying to explain it is, how does God possibly expand itself to know more, to deepen its own experience of itself? How would a consciousness like that do it? And one of the way that seems to be here is that send down little sparks of itself onto the planet. And each little spark comes in to have an experience, to learn it in a different way. And when that little spark has finished living its life and having its experience, we die or we go back up again to source consciousness. But our vibration is understanding and holding this new knowledge. And when it goes back up to source consciousness, it can take it and integrate it and expand itself. And that seems to be what's happened. I'm a little spark of consciousness, so are you. There's millions, billions of us on the planet. And it's as if my spark has come in repeatedly to learn different things. And as my little spark of consciousness grows and evolves, my level of understanding grows each time. And I'm raising my own frequency. I'm ascending myself a little bit more each time. So when I go back to source, it's like, how have you understood things better as a soul? And you're going back. So as an example, supposing you want to know what it's like to give birth, to have a baby. Go and ask any woman who's had a baby and they'll tell you, because they know. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll tell you this. The experience helps them to know in a completely different way. And it's integrated into their vibration. And that can go back up to source. But if you take just one experience, that's okay. But you think of the millions and billions of women who have given birth on the planet or over time. And if you could combine all of those experiences of what it's like to give birth, to have a baby, combine all of that knowing and vibration and take all of it back up to source consciousness over time. And source can take all of that and can integrate it and expand itself. So we're talking about God consciousness, Christ, incredible love. It's a vast concept, but something is working. There is a plan. There's a knowing and a plan that we can't quite get. And this is what's been happening on the planet for billions of years. So all the experience of different things, of grief, of pain, of sorrow, of happiness, of celebration, all of the experiences combined, all of those frequency vibrations going back to source so it can understand itself better. But the thing is, now we've come to the end of this. It was a learning curve so source could understand itself. In the third dimension, we have pushed it to the absolute limit where we're causing more harm than good. So it's like we're all little machines sent down to do a job here on the planet. But some of these machines are now not working properly and are actually doing more harm and damage. So we have, at the moment, we have urgency. We've got issues about climate change, pollution of the air, of the water, of our food supply, destruction of our environment. We have damage to people. Some of the things that are happening now are gone way too far. It's not learning anything. Progress is no longer possible in this way. And in particular with the feminine and the vulnerable. A lot of women have been held back. It's what's happened over time. Just held back, suppressed, not able to grow or expand themselves at all. And they've also ended up in some cases with horrible experiences. So they've been suppressed. Women have been bought and sold, seen as inferior, even trafficked, even little children, tiny little children, all sparks of consciousness coming in, but the experience of what's happening to them, the cruelty, is damaging. Consciousness is damaging itself now, and that is not going to be a learning curve. And on a human level, it's unspeakable, some of what is happening. But on a spiritual level, you can imagine the pain of that, to see what consciousness is doing to itself. It doesn't know. When we get here on this planet, we don't know what we're doing. We have an experience, but we don't understand it. And this is what's happening now. If with our ascension, if we can learn better and understand better, then we can get a sense of how to evolve ourselves spiritually. All of life is doing this. It's not just us. We tend to think it's just humans who are evolving. But everything, every plant, every animal, the air, the earth, the water, everything is evolving itself all the time. So to understand the significance of everything in life, what is it like? Everything is created as a form of consciousness going back for source to expand itself. So at this point, in terms of what's happening here on the planet, what we're seeing chaos and confusion. And there's an awful lot of people who are upset. They're angry, they're speaking out because they're rejecting so many things. We're getting warnings about our climate, that we haven't much time left, that we have to do something. People are speaking out about rights, the rights of women, the rights of children, racial things, sexuality. All of it has been spoken out because it's being rejected. In other words, looking for a better way to do things. People speaking about families and how families can damage us, speaking about mental health. All of this is on a third dimensional level, trying to bring in something better, but not understanding it. Whereas if we look at this on a spiritual level, the higher consciousness is trying to reach us. The divine feminine and masculine trying to come in a better form, trying to express itself in a better way, that the feminine is more open and stronger, that the masculine is able to balance itself. And this is what's been happening. And there's a point where when it gets so bad, we reject it completely. And a lot of people across the world are feeling this. Some spiritual people are understanding it, and they see that this chaos is a sign that things are coming to a tipping point, and that's what's needed. The indigenous people have always held this understanding, but across the whole planet we have pockets of people living ordinary decent lives, ordinary people. They don't know anything about this, maybe individual or groups, and feeling alone, isolated, thinking, God, the world is terrible, there's no hope, it's all gone crazy, I don't fit in here, how are we going to manage, how are we going to survive, what do we do, it's like there's nothing we can do, and all these feelings from people who are trying. But these are the people who will create the tipping point. We are literally the ones we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for ourselves to become aware of this and consciousness of it. Because the way things are at the moment in the third dimension, it has to come to a point where it ends. It has to collapse in on itself. It's not going to be total destruction. It's transformation. It's evolution. When it collapses in on itself, then it can expand again in a much better way. And this is what we're coming to. So when all of the people who individually realize that you're not alone, that other people feel the same way, that there's a great impulse and drive to push yourself onwards, to ascend, to bring your whole level of understanding up, when we connect, and more people are connecting in little groups and in ways like this, when that connection happens and we get it, we see, yes, there is hope, there's a way forward. That's the ignition point to me. That's this flash of intuition, of knowing, of consciousness coming in hard. Yes, that's it. That's the way forward. So we're being pulled forward in terms of ascension. And anybody, I think, who is aware of this sees the chaos on that level. On a human level, it's very difficult. But on a spiritual level, the more chaotic it is, the more we reject what's there, the more we don't want to live the way we're living now. And it's like some sort of an impulse. It's like lemmings at a certain point seem to go and they all run. They run like crazy and they all jump over a cliff. I don't know why, but they do. Or imagine if you're standing in a supermarket queue. You're at the end of the line, a long line, and it's like, oh, here, they're all long lines. I have no choice. I have to stand here. I have to wait. I have to keep doing things the way I've always done it, just wait and be bored and whatever. You think you have to keep doing things in that way and that's it. And suddenly someone shouts out, I'm opening another checkout over here. I was like, yo, you're the closest. Whoosh, you're gone. All of a sudden, it goes like that. When you see something, when you connect the dots just a bit, then you can evolve yourself. And you don't have to understand it completely. All you need is enough for the tipping point. If you get 50% or enough to pull yourself forward. And when enough people like that pull themselves forward, we're going to get to this point of ascension, of bringing our vibration up and allowing a higher consciousness to come in, and everything changes in the world. We stop living in the old ways. We get it. We see that we value everything. We have an awareness of the significance of everything. We no longer will remotely want to have polluted water, do any of the self-destructive things that are happening. Some people will continue for a while, but the majority will more and more start to live in a much better way. And this is it. It's a whole spiritual and it's a vibrational change that's coming. So to me, this is what it's about. And I've been thinking about it for a while, and hopefully some of these examples will give you a way to reach this. There's a quicker way if you're on a spiritual path, and which is why I think I'm drawn to divine plan healing. It was given, literally given. It is an aspect of light from source has been given, 2013. And it's an evolutionary light. It's not just a healing light, it's to evolve us. So wherever you're stuck, whatever area on any level that you're stuck, to evolve us, to help us. And it's a very simple, clear healing system. And I believe it was definitely sent and given for these times because people need this now. And it's completely different healing system, completely, totally different. To help you to heal so many things, to clear them and to evolve. And once you see that you're not at the end of the queue, that you can actually get out quicker, then it's something to embrace. So hopefully this is of some help to somebody. And I'm hoping to reach people just to start connecting the dots yourself, because you have to do this yourself. You can't take anybody else with you. Your friends and family will look at you like you've got 3 heads and they won't understand. Leave them. If you get this yourself, by the way you live, you will start to evolve, and they'll follow you when they're ready and when they're able. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I'll just check them.